Jamira Burley, social justice advocate and native of Philadelphia.
All right.
Well, hello, Philadelphia. And to all the visitors who have come here to the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection, hopefully my city will treat you well during your time here. I'm truly honored to moderate this panel, but more importantly, I first want to shout out Malcolm Kenyatta, who welcomed you all. Fun fact, me and Malcolm have been arch enemies since we were 15. We've even ran against each other for student government president. We both lost, but we're friends. So again, I'm super excited to moderate this panel because I think it sits at a very critical moment in our history when you look at the vast majority of individuals within our country who have find themselves behind bars. It's no news that the U.S. represents less than 5% of the world's population, but have more than 25% of its prisoners, right? With an understanding that Americans are not more inherently violent, unfortunately we have thousands of laws that oftentimes make the most simple or non-simple incidents become a criminal offense. I'm quite sure that many of you in this room even know someone who have been incarcerated. For those who have, can you raise your hand? Wow. And I'm quite sure, and I won't ask this question, I won't ask you to raise your hand, but I'm quite sure if we look at the vast majorities of laws on the city, state, and national level, many of you have even probably committed a crime, right? You can shake your head. I won't tell on you. I know we have the DA in office, but you're not gonna arrest them, right? Okay, see? So it's no surprise. So I think what's really important about this conversation is to have a really robust, quick conversation around, one, what is happening within our criminal justice system? Is it a possibility to find reform under the administration in which we find ourselves? But then two, where are the areas for hope, particularly the areas in which you all in the crowd can actually help to move the needle forward to ensure that we can find the solutions that can not only bring our loved ones home, but that can continue to make our streets safer and our courts more just. So with that being said, I'm gonna jump into the first question because I think if many folks in the room could probably think of one incident, one experience in their life that brought them to public service or that inspired them to get engaged either on the local level or the national level. And for me, when I think about criminal justice reform, I'm reminded of the fact that more than 12 of my 13 brothers have all been incarcerated. So I've seen the constant bombarding of the criminal justice system finding its way into my home. And I know for many young people, particularly young people of color, they grow up in communities where seeing loved ones get arrested or seeing loved ones die to gun violence is becoming the norm. And I'm curious for the two of you, what brought you into public service? What sparked the fire under you that made you want to do this work? Because you're not going to become rich in the process or famous, well, except for Larry. So I'm curious, what brought you into the space that can help to kind of lay the framework for why you find this work so important?
So for me, what brought me to public service is that it was in my DNA. I mean, we went to church and we served the community. That's what you did. And that kind of gave you an extra shot of dopamine all the time when you look at people that you're able to help, even though you can't help them financially or economically. So looking at that level of pleasure in serving people, knowing that I wanted to pursue being pretty much the first person to graduate from college in my family, but then go on to be even more than that, more than a college grad, which was a lawyer, which was, present controversy aside, watching the Cosby Show, I wanted to be Claire Huxtable. And so becoming that and having that shape my theory of what could I be in life and understanding where I came from and the similar things that I've seen with people's interaction in the criminal justice system who I thought were good people, but because they were entangled in the criminal justice system, they had become, the narrative was that they were inherently bad. And I said I wanted to change that narrative. I wanted to do something. And so being a public defender was a huge commitment to, the best commitment to public service that I ever thought or I could ever imagine. So I really thought that that was my passion. It drove me. I was always the person that wanted to buck against the government policies. I didn't have to worry about the politics. All I needed to do was be fierce and forceful in my convictions. So it was perfect for me.
Well, like Public Defender Keir Bradford-Grey, I too was oppositional. And that is a big part of the point. As I look around this room, I think everybody in this room knows why they're here. They all know why they want to do something. And it probably boils down to something like it's really fun and it makes you whole. And you probably had some experience in your life that allowed you the advantage of compassion, of being enough of an outsider or close enough to an outsider to feel compassion.
So I don't want to make an assumption, because I think although we know that in the last 5 years we've seen an increase of public interest in our criminal justice system, particularly around reform. But for those who don't know, America being a developed country, we lead the pack in regards to mass incarceration, as I mentioned before. Our biggest competitor being North Korea, which is a dictatorship. So I'm curious, is Americans more inherently violent, or is there something else happening here?
Look, I wouldn't know what other countries' politics are in terms of how they narrate their crime problems. But what I would say, being here in America, I know that the narrative has kind of fed into this belief that we need to do things the way we have been doing them for the past few decades, which is use the penal system so much more harsher in order to make us all safe. I think we now know that that is false, because what we were doing during the war on crime era, I'm sorry, I don't feel much more safe. In fact, I feel like we've made so many good people much more desperate, and we need to face that reality. So if you ask me, are we more violent as a country? Our country was built on violence. However, I don't think that all the people or the faces or the profile of violence is an accurate depiction of what we are.
I don't know enough. I'm not a sociologist or criminologist to say if we're more violent. We certainly have more guns than people. And even if you think about something as simple as the number of people who are killed by police officers in uniform and on duty, what would a car stop look like if we didn't have more guns than people? Would it be that dangerous? Would people be that hype? Would there be that level of fear? The fact that we are swimming in more guns than people kind of changes the potential for any social interaction we have. And especially when you're talking about 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds who may not yet see a future and may not be as mature as they will be later, every potential fist fight just turned into something else. So I don't know if we're more violent. Certainly that history is there. There's a horrifying history of violence being a fundamental part of our economic system, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I do know this. Locking up as many people as possible is making everything worse, because it's taking our resources away from the things that prevent crime and reduce violence, the things that heal society and build up schools and drug treatment and job training and economic development, all the stuff that actually works. So, needless to say, we need to go a different direction.
Now, both of you alluded to the fact that mass incarceration oftentimes is the symptom to much deeper systematic problems within our community, like race. You can barely turn on the news nowadays where you see incidents of police stopping an unarmed individual, it turns into a violent incident. Or if you just look at the numbers of those who are incarcerated, oftentimes are more Black and Latino, oftentimes for nonviolent incidents. So as the work that you're doing in your individual jobs, how are you working with your colleagues and your employees to help them better understand their explicit or implicit biases as they're moving through the systems as they're moving through their jobs?
Well, for us in public defender organizations, we know this stuff because we work with those who are impacted by the system. 70% of the system are those who are poor, cannot afford a lawyer. So who do you think are the ones that are representing them? It's the public defenders. So it's things that we've known, but I think have normalized so much through seeing it time and time again of what it is to go through this system. And so now what we have to do is take a step back. And we had to become more strategic as public defenders and become more data-driven, because we have a lot of data. We represent the people, the lives of the people, that we can get their demographics, what they came in the system with, what they lost when they got out of the system, and understand the real impact that this system had on communities. And becoming more data-driven, it allowed us to really get a better picture of who's in this system and for what. And what we've seen is all of it, it's no secret, and I think it doesn't even make us mad anymore that over 80% of the people in the system are minorities. It almost doesn't, it's just like a regular conversation doesn't make people mad. But when you really, really put some stories and anecdotes to that and how the generational effect on mass incarceration, which by the way, that's become a word of a catchphrase as well. Mass incarceration does not mean we don't need jails at all for anything. But it means that we've had such an addiction to the way we process people and using jail as the first option that we have locked up not only the people that need to be away, but we've locked up everyone just in the nature of being punitive.
And oftentimes made harsher criminals who go back into community.
Much more desperate. So we got to change that narrative, because I know the thing that Larry says all the time, and he's right, is that majority of the people in our system are not violent offenders. But you would think they were, based on the way we talk about crime and public safety.
So for me, this is actually a really tough question, because I think there's almost nothing that you do to improve criminal justice that does not simultaneously push back against racism. Racism in terms of disparate results, but also just in terms of how the entire system works, top to bottom, is so ingrained, all the way down to the level of selective enforcement in certain neighborhoods and not in other neighborhoods, that it's overwhelming. And it feeds off of fear, it feeds off of distrust. I have a narrow lane as the DA in Philadelphia County. My narrow lane is to determine what's a crime and what isn't, and when to use that power and when not. But there are ways that can be used that combats racism throughout the system. For example, if you say to the Philadelphia Police Department, I'm not taking your illegal stop and frisk cases, and I'm not prosecuting marijuana possession cases, because we've seen the outcomes. The outcomes are you stop black kids all the time, and you don't stop the white kids. That is selective enforcement, so I'm not doing it. Now what do? Do they actually go and lock up all these people, take them to the station house, cuff them, do all of that, and then have to release them from the station house because the Philadelphia DA's office won't bring the charges? Or do they adjust? When the time came for us to say we're not prosecuting marijuana possession, I called the police commissioner, who I actually think is a good person, and said, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm not telling you what to do, but you may want to reallocate your resources, because you're going to have frustrated officers bringing in kids in cuffs when they could be out there patrolling and answering real emergencies and violent crimes. And the police department adjusted. Police department then would simply write a little ticket like they do for other marijuana cases in other cities, and people would go from there. So, I mean, there's at every level, mass incarceration itself causes crime. Mass incarceration itself destroys schools. Convictions destroy employability, destroys neighborhoods. It goes on and on and on. Almost every single thing you can do to make criminal justice better pushes against racism. It pushes against stepping on the neck of the poor. And needless to say, there's a lot of overlap there. And so that's my problem. It's hard to answer because I don't even know where to begin.
So I have a follow-up for you, Larry, because you spent 30 years bucking the system, fighting against the system as a civil rights attorney, as a public defender. Many people called you anti-establishment, and now you're on the other side. So what do you hope to bring from your former life to improve the district attorney's office and to make Philadelphia safer and to set an example for the rest of the nation?
So you call it establishment?
I'm just saying.
What do I hope to do? What I really hope to do, honestly, is just to be a technician for a movement, because what has happened in Philadelphia and just happened a couple days ago in Boston, and what happened in St. Louis County maybe a month ago, and it's happened already in Chicago and San Francisco and Corpus Christi, Texas, and in Houston and in Brooklyn, is that we are seeing progressive prosecutors getting elected all over the country, often against the wishes of the mainstream Democratic Party. Too often, we are seeing this happen without the support of labor, because labor has in some instances become pretty comfortable with the mainstream Democratic Party. They have long established relationships. And I think that what we really need to do here is understand that this is not about me. This is about a movement. It's fundamental. It's among young people who seem to understand this, not sure exactly how. It is among people of color who have lived lives, so that even if they have not come in contact with the criminal justice system, 1 in 3 African American men experiences jail in their lifetime. What African American woman has not had to deal with that with a son or a cousin or a nephew, or in your case, a brother? So there is a level of deep understanding on the part of those who have lived it, and also on the part of young people, thank goodness, which has taken them to a place where having people who have not run for office before, people who want to be involved in politics now, people who want fundamental change, is a real deal. And if we can all go there, and I guess some people might be here because they want to go there, then we can get somewhere.
Awesome. So I have one and a part A question for you all before I close out. Oftentimes the two of you are opposite sides, the public defender and the DA, right? So the two of you are somewhat an odd couple of friends and colleagues, right? So how does this collaboration work? What are you, the two of you, doing to help ensure that Philadelphia is safe and building a better relationship between those two communities or entities?
Well, I kind of want to sing a version of You and Me Against the World, because in a way that's what it is. You know, Philadelphia's a fascinating place, and I'm sure it's not too different than other places, because the people are so far ahead of the political elite here. They are so far ahead of the criminal justice system, and I don't say that to tear down a lot of judges and a lot of good prosecutors and an awful lot of really good cops here, but the reality is that to some extent the criminal justice system is not that far from 1861, and the people are all the way up in 2018. So I think that we have been able to support each other on a lot of things about which we agree. I mean, the truth is that I have supported the Public Defender's Office in getting increases in pay and getting a better budget because, well, they did it for me too. So, you know, it's as it should be. A lot of the work, the things that my office needs to know are not going to come through anything we do, because only the public defender can speak to their own clients. Only they are able to get certain types of information that tells us more about what to do with a particular case. So they should get paid just as much as our prosecutors should get paid, even if historically they have not had the same political sway. In the same way, we're working on detainer issues together, reduction of incarceration issues together, bail issues together. Not to say we'll agree on everything, but, you know, public defender Keir Bradford-Grey knows what's up, and I also know what's up. We've been in the system a long time. I got 30 years of being in court 4 and 5 days a week, and Keir's experience is frankly equal to mine, even if not quite as many years. So we're able to work together, and we better work together, because an awful lot of other people in the system are just not there yet.
I will say this. I think it definitely takes two to make this system roll, and that is the district attorney as well as the public defender's office, who represents majority of the people in it, but it also takes that third person or that third leg, which is the courts. All of those have to be working together, and with two people pushing one way, it makes it more likely that the third will come on board, and then slowly but surely we are moving the needle. But one of the things I definitely want to stress is that I think Larry and I have the same ideology on the big picture. And so when you say we make deals in the boardroom and we do get out in the courtroom, that is real in our system right now. I'm having the time of my life with a counterpart that is very reasonable and understands the issues. But even putting the Larry Krasner in this system alone, he would not be able to make substantial change without someone on the other side pushing as well. And remember, we can say things that he can't. I mean, kinda. Larry's kinda interesting. But we can say things that he shouldn't, I should say that, because Larry still is a prosecutor. Law enforcement is where he has to look through his lens. But I love the fact that we have an opportunity, because it's not just Larry, but it's the community, it's the organizing power, it's the people that when the times get tough, because there are going to be tough times, you're never going to know when something may happen that may get the Willie Horton effect, right? And that will be one case out of 2,000. But Larry will have that pressure, and he's going to need people to stand up behind him and say, hey, these were the right decisions for the right reasons. And I understand that we don't have a crystal ball to predict whether or not everything will run smoothly, which that actually you can predict everything will not run smoothly. But it's about looking at it in a mass impact and saying, hey, are these better for our communities and our society? And yes, are there going to be times where there are hiccups and make everybody afraid? Yes, but don't let that narrative cast the light over everything that we've been doing here and that we still have yet to do.
A lot of work ahead. Okay, so final question, because the arena is not just about talking about the work ahead, it's also about doing, taking action. What is one thing that you want the folks in the crowd to be able to do or should do in order to join the efforts that you're doing or to push for social justice in their own communities?
What I want you to do is continue to push by being vocal. Use your media platforms to share a different narrative of what's going on. If all the people that raise their hand know someone who's been in jail, they all can't be violent criminals that are going to run around and kill us, right? Some of them have to have a lot of great qualities that are useful. Let's change the narrative of what crime and punishment should look like. And let's put faces to the people that come through this system that are working mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, instead of the alleged thief or burglar that they're being charged with, because that's what gets spread. Thief or person that committed the crime or criminal, those are the labels that get spread. Change that. Shed light on who you know that has gone through that system that is an excellent person, and make sure that the narrative is balanced and the narrative includes the totality of what we are dealing with here in our society.
You know, I guess I would say that activists do politics better than politicians. They have for a very long time. People have not seen it. Activists come with many different skills. Keir comes with tremendous background in criminal justice. I come with a lot of background in criminal justice. Other people out there might be the best graphic designer in the world. You might be better on social media than anybody's ever seen. You might be the one who could knock on the door of some working class white people who aren't quite sure if they're Reagan Democrats or what they are and bring them around. You start with what you know. You start with what you want to know. You do that and you believe that you can have that impact, and what you're going to see is what we've seen all over the country with these progressive DA's races, which is that we are winning far more than anybody thought we would. We are winning most of them. We are winning them many times, not only against the Republican Party, but against the mainstream Democratic Party, and we're doing it because we as activists are so much better at politics than the politicians due to all the battles we have won with no money, with no resources. Holy cow, give us a little money and resources, we're going to knock them out. We're doing it because we have the organizational skills, the verbal skills, the persuasive skills, all the stuff the mainstream politicians never had, don't have now, and never will have. So do not think for one second you cannot do this, because if I can do it, then anybody can do it, and God knows you can do it.
And there's more of us than there are of them, right?
Exactly, and as Nike would say, just do it. Thank you all for joining us for this conversation, and a round of applause to our panelists.
Please give Jamira Burley a round of applause for doing an awesome job moderating that panel. Jamira, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you, Keir. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate you. You know, what I heard you guys say was that regardless